Hello everyone. Today we are continuing with our N5/beginner materials, and we are jumping into an interesting pair of words, mo and mada, each of which have a number of different usages. Essentially, each of them has a single meaning, but you'll see that that meaning looks different depending on the verbs that we use it with. So let's take a look at those. They're separate, and I'm going to skip through those. And we're going to jump straight into mo. Mo, and then we'll do mada afterwards. Now, the tricky thing here, if you look at it, is when you look at it just by itself, you may say, this is strange. How can it mean already or not anymore at the same time? So I want you to see that, but I want you to look at this next panel and think about this a bit more. Rather, mo is used to describe something that a change has happened. That change is either you weren't doing some action and you're doing it now, or you were doing some action and you finished it, something along those lines. So mo is used to emphasize a change. And this will make much more sense as we go in and see some examples. So let's jump straight in with those. Now, we're going to talk about adverb. These are adverbs. Adverbs, if you are not a grammar term fan, adverbs are those words that can modify adjectives or verbs, usually verbs. And adverbs have a very unique placement style in Japanese. And we will talk about that later on. If I forget to mention it, scream at me, and then I'll make sure I get to it. But we'll see some examples, and you might say, oh, I see mo in different places, but don't worry, we'll get to that. So we're going to look at it in a few different ways. This first one is with the past tense. So think of that in your head. Mo plus the past tense. And when we're doing this, we're talking about something that, has already been done. It's already been finished. It's already over. And with that, you often, almost all the time, you see mo in this form translated as already. Because fortunately for us, it's one of those few times that the English and the Japanese fit really, really well together. And so if you look at the examples on the screen, you can see what's going on here. And let me read through each of these. The first one, mo shukudai o shimashita. I've already done my homework. I've already finished my homework. You don't usually translate shimashita or suru as finished, but I could see that being a possible way of translating this attached to the mo. I've already done my homework. If you've done your homework, then presumably you've finished it. So you might see this as I've already done my homework, I've already finished my homework, or whatnot. You have something that's a bit shorter. Mo kaita also works. I or someone. We don't have any subjects here. These are just very simple, almost. They can be sentences, but you could see them in sentence fragments. So, mo kaita, already went home. So someone might say, hey, where's Kao-chan? I thought Kao-chan was going to be at this party. And let's just pretend the Kao-chan is male for this sentence. Kare wa mou kaita. He already went home, already returned home. The third one might be something along the lines of someone saying, hey, I remember you talking about you were taking a trip to Japan. Have you done that? Have you gone yet? When is it? And you say, oh, yeah, I already went. Mo Nihon ni itta. I've already been to Japan. Now, you'll notice that with these sentences, the first one is polite. The second two is casual. Mo in and of itself does not have any politeness attached to it. It's not polite or formal or casual or any of that. So you can use it with whatever form you need, and you can use it with much more complex sentences than this. So let me give you a quick example. I'm going to combine these first two. it might be that a student needed to do their homework at school before they went home. So we could do something like this. And again, since these are beginner lessons, we still have, I'm just putting the hiragana up in the channel since I can't use furigana. So sorry to those of you that, are more comfortable with the kanji. 彼は宿題が終わったからもう帰ったよ。His homework is already finished, or his homework is finished, so he's already gone home. So you can have, these sentences are on the screen are a bit simpler, but you can have much more complex sentences like this. Now, before we practice these, let me jump ahead and answer a couple of questions I know some of you are thinking about. So let's take a look at that first sentence. I'm going to type it out real fast. I'm going to type it out one more time. I'm going to leave out a word. Except I misspelled shukudai. Sorry about that. Shuku. How was I even trying to do? Okay. Shukudai. There we go. So we've got these two sentences. And one thing that I think a lot of textbooks, I've seen teachers fail to do, is they teach the mechanics, but they don't teach when you actually need to use it. Like, when do we use this? So let's take a look at these two sentences. Mou shukudai shimashita and shukudai o shimashita. Now, if I ask you what's the meaning, you'll probably say, well, we just talked about already. That first one means I've already done my homework. Compared to, shukudai o shimashita. So any ideas on what the difference, like when would you use one compared to the other? The first one being I've already done my homework. The second one being I did my homework. So why do we even need mo? We already had this simple, this simple sentence that could be used to explain that you did something. So why do we need it? And while emphasis is not wrong, I think emphasis is a bit too general because you could throw that onto almost any grammar element and say this is to emphasize it, but for what purpose? Almost everything in language emphasizes one thing or another. So why would we, when are we going to pull this out? So a lot of us are saying, okay, I want to start using this, but when? When do I use it? Now I'll give you a hint. The answer was back in one of the earlier slides. One of the panels we saw earlier when I described what mo actually is used for. Not just with this one, but with all of them. And I think a couple of people you're really close to the answer. Both of those could be used to answer a question and be natural, depending on the question, of course. And context, yes, but also no. And context is can't be used. It's just an answer for everything. We want to get to the point of when do I need to use mo? As a language learner, I want to take this new grammar I'm learning and I want to express it. So when is that expression going to come up? And of course it's context, but we need to know what that context is so we can get to it. Now don't worry, I will tell you, but I think it's helpful to have you try and work through it yourself somewhat and see if you can pull up on some of those hints as to why and when you might use it. So I see a couple of people typing. Feel free to keep typing, but one person just put up the magic word that I was looking for, which is a change. Mo and mada refer to changes, ultimately. They're both pointing out a change. And as I noted before, mo is used to show a change between some action being done and then not done anymore, or not being done yet. And as we're going to see in the next example, not yet being done and now doing it. But you're not focused on the action so much as you're focused on that action compared to earlier in time or now. So you're focusing on that change. So where you have the simpler sentence, I'm going to type that one more time because it's a bit too high in the chat. Shukudai o shimashita. So someone said this might be used to answer a question. And so what would a question be for both of these? It would give us, these answers. This first one, let's say you're a kid and your parents were, they were coming home from work and you're there by yourself. And your parents come home and they say this. Now, who knows why your parents are talking to you in Japanese, but let's just say they are. They're really supporting your Japanese learning. And they say, "Nani o shimashita ka?" What were you doing? Especially maybe because you had this really mysterious, I'm hiding something look on your face when they get back. And they're like, "What were you doing?" And you're like, or what did you do? "I did my homework. Shukudai o shimashita." They're not asking about a timeline or what happened here, what happened next. They're saying, what did you do? And you say, "Shukudai o shimashita." I did my homework. See, I'm a good kid. Mom, dad, whoever. Parole officer. So that works in that situation. So how are we going to use this mo? We're using that to emphasize a change. So the reason I'd see this come up, we're going to focus on kids again. What might a kid be doing? And a parent would say, "Hey, have you done your homework?" They could have the Switch in front of them. They could be reading manga or whatever. So you've got this scene, you're playing a game, and your parents walk in. And they're like, "Have you done your homework?" And you're like, "Yes, I have. I finished it already." And that's where a sentence like this would come out. Here, you're focusing on the change of, you doing it and now you're no longer doing it because it's finished. And with this past tense, you're often focusing on the finished or the completed aspect of whatever the action is. So when all three examples are on the screen, I did my homework, they already went, I already went to Japan, or they already returned home and I already went to Japan, you're focused on all of those occurring and finishing. They're all done. And so when you need to emphasize that something's been finished, something is over. So "Mom, don't worry. I already did my homework. That's why I'm playing games." That's where mo comes in, or at least the mo in the past tense. So let's brainstorm with that just a little bit. Let's take that scenario. Let's jump. I've been following Switch news. So let's jump 3 months in the future. And let's say you just picked up the new Legend of Zelda game that's coming out for the Switch in September, featuring Zelda as the main character. And you've got it and you're playing, and your parents come home and they say, "Wait, why are you playing? You shouldn't be playing." You need to tell them something to placate your parents. You need to say, "I already did this. Now, I already said homework, so we can't use that." But what are some other things you could say that you've already done that would let your parents say, "Okay, all right, I see you've done what you need to do. Keep playing, keep playing your new game." So this is practice, which means anyone that wants to try and put an answer out can. You're not required to. No one gets called out. We don't say, "Hey, you, how about you try?" There's none of that. It's just if you want to jump in and practice using this a bit, please do so. Keep in mind that this is an N5 beginner level, so we're keeping kanji light here. If you do enter or respond with kanji, please put the hiragana, say next to it or below it, just so we can see that as well. So you're playing the new Zelda game. Your parents come home. They say, "Hey, why are you playing?" And you say, "Well, I've already ... What is it that you've already done that will get them off your back? So I'll give you a couple of minutes to answer things. Please, the first person to put, I'll talk about the one answer that's come up so far. Someone said, I already cleaned my room. That's a good answer. もう部屋を掃除したよ。掃除しました。So I'll give you another minute and then we'll uh, go over some of the answers. So what do we have? Someone said, oh, I already gave the flowers some water. Since you're giving the flowers the water, since it's kind of a directional action, it would be hana ni mizu o yatta. So someone said, I don't forget Renshu is in the name of our app, has a long oo sound on the end. And although everyone's been sticking to the polite form, don't forget you can use the casual form as well if you'd like, depending on your relationship with your parents. But these are great answers. I love what I'm seeing. I think you all have have it down. So let's continue. We have a bunch to do, and I don't want to spend too much time on each one. Again, if you have questions or is this sentence right? Can I use it this way? You can ask those at any time. There's not a specific, this is question time kind of thing. It's just, if you got a question, just toss it out. But let's continue going. So we talked about the past tense. We referred to it as already. We are also going to refer to this one as already too. So there's a couple of different ways we can use this. We're referring to the present tense, excuse me. And there's two different ways you can use it. The first way, you'll use it to describe. This one's a bit hard. Actually, I'm going to jump to that one next. Let me do the easier one first, and then I'll do that one. Look at the second one. When you're talking about present tense, it doesn't say this specifically here, but you're going to use the progressive. Usually. There are times when you would say not teiru, but just the basic word. But usually you're going to have the present progressive, just like we have on the screen. So mo tabeteru, which means it's still the same as already, but you're referring to something you're doing now. Before, we were referring to an action that we did and is done. So again, we see that change. This one is referring, again, you're not just saying I'm eating. It's like I'm already eating, which makes it sound like if you say that. So if you say to someone, let's think about it in English. I'm already eating. Why would you say that? What was said to you that would make you respond that way? Think of it that way. So what's our usage pattern for this? When do you need to tell someone I'm already doing something? So one person answered with the dialogue, but in a more general sense, if someone were to say, eat your veggies, or so we're going to eat together, right? Oh, that's a good one. I didn't think of it in that way. So with all of these, there's a question about whether or not you're doing something. There's a question about whether or not you are doing that action. So you're using this to say, yes, I am already doing that. もう食べてるよ. Yes, I'm already eating. So again, this is typically, used as, this isn't something you would lead with. You wouldn't say, oh, hi, I'm already eating. This often comes up as a response to what someone else says. So it might be, I'm going to type it out for you. It might be doubt about your actions, or question about if you're doing something or not. Doubt is kind of coming from, maybe from, say, the parent-kid dynamic, or the boss and employee. It's like, hey, are you brushing your teeth? Yes, mom, I'm already brushing. Get off my back, kind of thing. Or if someone is, say, asking, hey, I'm going to go get some food. Are you hungry? And you say, oh, and, you're texting them. And they say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm already eating. So in both of those situations, you could use that. Now, let's jump up to the first one that's on the screen, one that's just a bit higher. This one, however, does not use a verb. However, it refers to, and I'm going to call this, it's not necessarily just a time. The one here is, and that makes it very simple. Mo yasumi no jikan desu. So again, you're referring to a change. Before, it was not break time. Now it is break time. And you're focusing on that. It wasn't before, but it is now. Mo yasumi no jikan desu yo. But there are also other words you can use that aren't referring to a time, so to speak, but in a sense it is. Typically, you can take whatever word is there and boil it down into a time. So let me give you a few examples. These are going to be really simple, and sometimes 2 or 3 words. Things you've probably heard, especially, say in anime or whatnot. But if someone says mo warida, what do they mean when they say that? Owari being finished or over or the end kind of thing. It's not already finished though. It's not already finished. Because if it was already finished, we'd use the past tense, right? If you already finished, for example, oh, I wanted to see the movie. Has it started yet? And someone says, mo watta yo. That's using past tense because the action's already done. Action is already done. If you are saying mo owari da, though, it is not done. We're still present tense. It's not done, but you're basically at that step of it being over. So when would you use this? You'd use this, for example, if you were trying to win. You're playing a game. Some of you know I like playing Deep Rock Galactic, and I was playing last night. We were 40 minutes in, and towards the end of it, I knew the game was over. I knew we would lose, and we did. But the game had not ended yet. I saw it. I was like, it's finished. It's already finished. It's already in the sense that there's no way it would change. And so had I wanted to say something, I could have said this. So mo warida, you also hear this in the negative sense as well. Mo dameda. Something is not good, and there's not really a way to fix it. You might be cooking something and you can tell that you've cooked it too much and you're going to burn it. Like there's no way to stop it at that point. Like, mo dameda. or you're taking a test and you've already skipped half the test. You've just left half the test blank and you've only got 5 minutes. And you're like, it's over. You know, there's no way I'm going to pass this. Have you failed it yet? No, not really. But you can see that no goodness or failure or the end or whatever happens to be right in front of you. And there's nothing that's going to stop it from coming. So you can use things like this. So let me read this question that someone put up. You could use it, again, it's not always a response. It's often a response, but to respond to the person that said, can you use it as context? Sure. You could say, let's say you invited someone to go see a movie. So let's say you ask someone to go see a movie and they said, yeah, I'll let you know when I get off of work. Maybe I can join you. And they contact you after the movie's already done. And they're like, I'm sorry, I had extra work to do. What are you guys doing? And you say, well, the movie's already finished, but how about tea or coffee or whatever? And that would be fine. That's not really an answer, so to speak, but you are providing a sense. You're focusing on not that the movie finished. It's more that the change, okay, it's done, so the movie is not now. So sure, you could do it that way. Now, the sentence I put up is a perfect time to take a step back and talk about adverb placement. And this drives a lot of people crazy because as you want to, you have that desire to have words go in a certain order. It's like, if I have this word, it goes here. You know, times tend to go at the front and the direct objects go next to the verb. And I like this order. And then adverbs come in and mess it all up. They just don't like, having a specific spot. And adverbs in Japanese are somewhat fluid. They can go just about everywhere. However, they are most common in two spots. It's usually at either top of the sentence, and if you're not familiar with this term top in this usage, it means the beginning. The beginning of the sentence or prior to the verb. I'd say prior to the verb is more often. You'll see that more commonly. However, sometimes, and it provides a slightly different emphasis, which we won't get into today, you'll see at the top of the sentence. So the example I have that's on the screen, eiga ga mou owatta, it's right there in front of the verb. However, you may see this. Mou eiga ga owatta. And this would also be grammatically correct and would work. Although, if you're in doubt, you're like, I'm not sure which place I should put it in, put it right in front of the verb. And you will never be wrong. It's the most common, and I'm going to say the most natural for most situations. So it's your safest bet. Now, I told you earlier, we're going over a lot today. I told you earlier that usually, most of the time, when we have mou and the present tense, we are using I'll answer that in just a sec. We're using this present progressive, the teiru, the ing, as in I'm already eating, I'm already sleeping, I'm already in class. However, you can use it with the simple something like this. It does not need to be present progressive. This is more of an edge case. And it sounds like someone is nagging you to eat. and you're like, okay, I'm going to eat. Like, I'm going to eat now. I haven't started yet, but I'm just before starting. So it's like, again, you see this used a lot with passive complaints towards someone. Yeah, okay, I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat right now. Just wait. Or I'm going to go to school, or I'm going to clean, or whatever happens to be. Mo taberu yo. So you do see that sometimes, but not quite as common. And to the question above, I don't like exact English translations because there usually isn't one that fits, and this is the best one. There's not other ways to put it. But the movie is already finished. And we don't have time to go into the nitty-gritty nuances of how it changes depending on where the mole is. We might have time for that after the lesson, but we still have a bunch to do, as you can see by our little progress bar, in only 25 minutes. But both of them mean the movie is already finished close enough to where you can interchange them, and the other person wouldn't say, wait, what are you talking about? It would shift the nuance slightly, but not enough to disrupt what you're trying to get across to them. Okay. We have one more, excuse me, let me jump through. One more usage of mo. So we've talked about past tense. I've already finished something. We talked about the present tense, which is usually I'm already doing something right now. However, this one is interesting because it uses the negative form to talk about something that's in the past relative to now, or something now relative to the past. So there's a few different ways that we see it. And so let's go through all of them, okay? One, you can use it with, nouns. This isn't really a noun because we still have the arimasen at the end. But we can say, oh, there's no more time. There's no longer any time. So again, how does that change from this sentence? Shikan ga arimasen. That just means we have no time. Mo jikan ga arimasen. That means we had time before, but we don't anymore. Again, it's focused on that shift, that change of state from before to now. So maybe this is something we might say to our children, saying, oh, you had time to play games before, but no, we don't have time now. We have to go to school or to swimming class or whatever. Same nuance is going on with the second one. Mo kawakunai. Kawakunai by itself just means I'm not scared. Mo kawakunai is stating that you were scared before, but you're not now. Similarly, we can jump in and use it with verbs. And let's take a look at both of these. Mo nonde nai. I'm not drinking anymore. I'm not drinking it anymore. And this, oh, actually, let me read both of them. Mo sako shimasen. I don't play soccer anymore. The difference between these two, so they both refer to something that you did before, but you're not doing anymore. Actually, I'll jump to the difference in just a sec. So let's take a look at this panel. That'll help us a bit. So, you may or may not do this again in the future, but right now you're focused on something that you did before and you're no longer doing now. The thing I think I see as a difference between these two is looking at that top one, mo nonde nai. It sounds like you're referring to something that you did very recently, as in maybe a few minutes ago. So, for example, I say, I know that, my friends were drinking, and I call them. I say, hey, are you guys still drinking? They're like, no, not anymore. We finished 5 minutes ago. Now we're heading over to the park, or whatever. This sounds more immediate. It's referring to something that just changed recently. Whereas mo sako shimasen, it sounds stronger. It sounds more final because it sounds like something you did in the past, but you no longer do now. For example, I played soccer for 30 years, but I don't now. And this one sounds more like, and I'm not going to. It has that sense of volition attached to it. The mo sako shimasen or mo saka wa, that would also work. This sounds like you chose. I used to play it. I chose to stop. I'm not doing it anymore. The first one, however, sounds closer to we were drinking and we stopped and we're not drinking now. I mean, of course, we probably chose to stop drinking, so there was some volition involved, but it's not focusing on that. It's just focusing on the state change. That I was drinking, I'm not now. Excuse me. I know this, because this lesson is a bit packed with a lot of things, we're going over a lot of different nuances, and I apologize we don't have quite as much time as we usually do to pick apart each of these, but feel free to ask questions now or after the lesson, and we can, I can cover all the spots that you might feel are a bit fuzzy, okay? So let me answer this question real fast. I don't think I've ever mo yarenakatta. Yeah, you wouldn't use that. It's ungrammatical. I can't think of a situation that you could shoehorn it in. Mo shinakatta. Yeah. Slang, I don't think slang exists in that sense in Japanese. I mean, Japanese has slang, yes. But most slang in Japanese is word selection and destruction of verb forms, like taking verbs and just crunching them down more and more and more. But I'd say I can't think of a specific example compared to English, to where sometimes we will actually change the tenses of verbs in more slang. I don't feel like that really happens in Japanese. You hear this verb being used instead of that verb, or this word being used, or this combination of words. Right, so mo sako shimasen deshita. It doesn't, I would ask, what would that mean in English? Like, I can't, my brain, maybe it's just not seeing the path, but I can't see how that would work in English either. I no longer didn't play soccer. We wouldn't say that in English either. In English, we say, I didn't play soccer, but I do now. But that mo, I no longer didn't play soccer. Yeah, I don't think it works in either language. Oh, it's a really good question, though. Let's continue because we have mada. We still have the second half of this lesson. It's not quite as complex as mo, fortunately. Mada has one usage that is interesting in that it kind of overlaps with mo, but it means something slightly different. But let's take a look at these. Typically, you'll see these translated as either still or not yet. You can probably guess that still is used with positive verbs, not yet is used with negative ones. But let's jump right into some examples. When we're using the negative form, again, most of the time, I always have to preference this because there's always a way to do it a different way. Most of the time, you're going to see it with the present progressive, the te iru, or more specifically, the te inai. So what does this mean? This means specifically that it's something you haven't done yet, but you plan to. It can't be used for something you haven't done yet, and you probably won't. It's usually used for something that you haven't done, but you expect to do so. So I think some examples are going to pop up in a second. Yes, let me jump past the positive forms and let's jump to some examples. So, taking a look at this first one, まだ授業を受けていません. I haven't taken this class, but you plan to. Not only do you plan to, but it sounds, and I'll show you why I mean this, it sounds like it's closer than not in terms of when you're going to do it. Or maybe not closer in terms of time, but closer in terms of likelihood. So, まだ授業を受けていません sounds like this. It sounds like, or let me jump to the second one because we all want to go to Japan. まだ日本に行っていない So, I haven't been to Japan yet. However, it sounds like I haven't been to Japan yet, but I'm going to go. I'm going to go, and either you have plans, so you're going next week or next month or next year, or maybe you don't have solid plans, but it's like, I really want to go soon. I don't have the ticket, I might not have the money, but I really want to go. It is going to happen if I can make it happen. It's got that kind of feel to it. Compare that, though, to this. I'm typing it out real fast. So, same sentence, except we don't have the progressive form, we have just the simple verb. まだ日本に行かない This one as well, because there's mada, that means not yet. Whenever you say not yet in English, the implication is that it will happen sometime. This one, however, sounds much more nebulous. It sounds much more like, yeah, I haven't been to Japan yet. I might go someday. So that sense of volition, that strength in like how much you are going to go or planning to go is much, much weaker here. So 行っていない sounds closer to going to in the future. Really hoping to, something like that. There's a much stronger sense of going with まだ行っていない まだ行かない might go. Maybe. Who knows? There's a feeling of yes to it. But it's weaker. Similarly, to give you another example, let's look at this one. Use another verb that we use all the time. So, 食べていない versus 食べない. I guess I should put the mada in front. Mada 食べていない sounds closer to maybe the food. Now, this is not an exact translation. I'm just trying to provide a sense of comparison between the two. まだ食べていない sounds like the food is ready. Maybe the food's been brought out to the table. And so, you're going to eat soon. It's very clear you're going to eat soon. You need to finish that game you're doing or the book or the homework, whatever. It's like, mada tabete nai. I'm not eating yet, but it's coming. My intention to eat is there. However, mada tabe nai, it puts some space between you and the eating. For example, my wife, Saki, she might ask me, so dinner, we're having dinner. Are you going to eat? And I might say, well, no, Renshu went down. The server went down. I need at least 2 or 3 hours. So, mada tabenai. Yeah, I'm going to eat later, but not now. Not now and not soon. So the whole, it's going to happen is still there. So that's why it still has that not yet feel to it, but it feels further. It feels less absolute than mada tabete inai. Okay, let's keep going. And like before, You can use mada and mo are similar in the sense that they're not polite or casual or formal, or any of that. You can use them in any situation. When we use it with the present tense, not the present, excuse me, the positive form, we're talking about something that we're still doing. Talking about something that we're still doing. So if someone says, hey, I remember you used to do karate back in the day. Are you still doing that? You're like, yes, I am. I am still doing it. And, or if, you know, your kids ask you, hey, mom or dad, I'm hungry. Is the food ready? And you say, no, I'm still cooking. You can hear with this one, let's do a quick comparison between what we learned before, because we had a very similar you have what look like two very similar sentences, and they're both being used to describe something that's happening right now. もう料理をしてる。料理している. By the way, I dropped the O out of there, which you can do in casual form. So you'll see it 料理をしている. You can also see 料理している. They both work. They're both totally okay in casual conversation. So these two seem very, very similar. And then, of course, we have this one. I'm cooking. So let's break these down, and this will hopefully tie everything together we've learned today. What are the differences between all three of these? So I'm going to go ahead and edit and type in what's in here. Our basic one is the easiest. It just means I am cooking. Right? When you say I am cooking, you are not making any reference to what you're doing before, what you're doing after, none of that. It's just straight up, I am cooking. The one we just learned is, now, of course, we can say, oh yeah, it just means I am still cooking in English. But what we want to focus on is, it means this. An action from the past is not yet done. So mada is focusing on the not, this is not a word, the not doneness. The not doneness of the action. It is not yet done. That's what mada is focusing on. With the last one, or with the first one, mo, remember it was focusing on the change. Mo focuses on the change. I wasn't before, but I am now. Mada is focusing on it not being done. Drop them both, and it focuses on nothing. It's just a pure statement of fact. I am cooking. So as the screen shows, both with cooking, which might be something you're doing now, an actual activity, or with the karate example, karate, if you say mada karate o shitemasu, you're probably not referring to literally doing hand chops that second. You're referring to some activity that you're doing. You might do it every week, every month, every afternoon, but you can talk about habitual activities that are not necessarily happening now. So all of you, for example, maybe you've got a friend that heard that you were studying Japanese, and they kind of put you down. They're like, oh, that's impossible. You're going to give that up, right? I mean, Japanese, what is that? All those characters? That's crazy. And you said, nope, I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to get it done. And a month goes by, and you're, thanks to Renshu or Anki or whatever it is you're using, you're doing great. And your friend, hoping to put you down, are they really a friend? they say, so Japanese, you gave it up, right? It was too hard, wasn't it? And you say, no, mada benkyou shitemasu yo. Well, you probably say yo. You'd say, no, I'm still studying. And again, you'd use this. You could say I wasn't studying before and I am now, but that wouldn't make sense. Right now, you're focusing, you're pushing back on the expectation or the question, the doubt as to whether it's done or not. The other person might be saying you're done, right? Or they might be implying, are you done? It might have nothing negative to it at all. And you're like, no, I'm still doing it. So focusing on the not doneness of the action. Now, we unfortunately don't have enough time, I think. Well, I think we can practice this one, but we don't have too much time for questions. So while we're practicing, if you have any questions, please throw them out. But I would like you to think about something, and it could be studying Japanese if you want. Think about something that you are still doing now, good or bad. Maybe you're still oversleeping every day. Something you're still doing that you or other people maybe expected or thought you would have been finished with by now. It could be good or it could be bad. And if, I hear someone, you've got a hot mic on, please turn your mic off. So what's something you're still doing you're not done with? It might even be something that you had doubts about. Like, I'm not sure if I'm going to stick around with this, but you're still doing it. I'm not done yet. For my example, I started this last year. I had serious doubts as to whether or not I'd stick with it, but Mada Warhammer, in Japanese it would be Warhammer. Mada Warhammer yatteru. I'm still making my figures. Now remember, with this, it's something you're still doing now, so you want that te imasu form. So if you have shimasu, you would switch that over to shiteimasu. So someone else mentioned they're still dieting, you don't really do university. You might say I'm still studying at university, or this one's actually, if you use the imasu or arimasu to show existence, like I'm still in university, there's no present progressive form of that. There's no itemasu. So you could just say mada daigaku ni imasu. I'm still in university. So I'll give you a couple more minutes and then we're going to wrap things up. So if you'd like to try a sentence, please do so. So we have a few people. We have someone still doing their laundry. Someone is still oversleeping, and that isn't. They're not literally oversleeping now. They're referring it to kind of as a habit, good or bad. So it's like I'm still sleeping in, kind of thing. Someone is still eating breakfast, and I guess they're eating breakfast and on Discord at the same time. Someone else jumped back and used the other form of mada. So someone said, I'm still eating breakfast. Someone said, I still haven't eaten breakfast. But like we said before, that I haven't eaten breakfast, it sounds like it's getting there. It's getting close. No, oversleep was earlier. was a bit earlier, and they wrote it just in kanji. Mada mada, it just means like not yet. Mada mada. I don't know why we say it twice. It's just, it's fun to say. Mada mada. It's just, it's not yet. And you usually refer to something as not having started or not being finished or what have you. It's like, when are you guys getting married? Ah, mada mada. But because you're emphasizing, you're strengthening it. So it's not yet, not yet. It's further into the future. Sure, you can use it with adjectives. I think it was on one of the panels earlier. So yeah, it's still hot, of course. Good question. Mada atsui. Mada suzushii yo. Anyway, we've run out of time. So thank you so much for joining us and for having being with us for a lesson that was packed with so much stuff. We went through so many different patterns. Feel free to go back and check this lesson out inside of Renshu to look at it a bit more slowly. Or you can check out, if you look up mo or mada in the dictionary, the grammar dictionary, you can get a lot more examples and whatnot. But this video will be available later on with here in Discord as well as inside of Renshu. The next event should be next week, although I'd have to check to be sure. I'm not sure if it's a lesson next week or if it's a games/discussion. We'll have to see. But please check, all events are always listed inside of Discord in Renshu, as well as here in the server events channel at the top of the channel list. Anyway, thank you so much, guys.